It was the accident that rocked the golf community and left a lasting impact in the aviation world.
We're going to be discussing the 1999 Payne Stewart Learjet crash today on Taking Off.
Welcome to Taking Off. I'm Christy Wong.
And I'm Dan Milliken. Thanks for watching. Our channel is made possible by great sponsors like camera and smart device mount maker 67 Designs. Check them out below, and we're going to have more on our sponsors at the end.
There's been a resurgence of talk recently about Payne Stewart's plane crash, with the recent loss of a Cessna Citation 560 over Virginia. Theories have come up that perhaps the Citation suffered a pressurization issue, causing the pilot to pass out. Now, we won't know for sure if that's exactly what happened until the NTSB finishes their investigation. However, we do know that's exactly what happened in 1999.
Okay, so in talking about what happened in 1999, it was October, Christy and I fought over who gets to do this report. You know, most people don't know, but I'm actually a recovering golfaholic. I played every chance I got. I did a lot of business deals on the golf course. My movies were funded by deals I made on the golf course. And I loved watching golf. I watched Payne Stewart's 1999 US Open victory. He won in dramatic fashion on Father's Day over Phil Mickelson, whose wife had just had their first baby. And poor Phil at the time was known as the best golfer to have never won a major. I'd also recently become a father myself, and seeing Payne console Phil right after he won, it was emotional.
Okay, so I was not a golfaholic, but I was a teenager when this happened and an aspiring pilot. I followed the story closely and became even more emotionally invested when I learned that one of the pilots was a female. It left a lasting impact on me personally, and it's one that I carry forward in my piloting today. So we decided we'd cover this one together. For those of you not golfaholics as myself, William Payne Stewart was a prominent golfer with the PGA. He got his start playing collegiate golf at Southern Methodist University right here in Dallas. Payne had many trials and triumphs throughout the 80s, working his way up the PGA ladder. The late 80s saw much success for Payne. He gained not only several wins throughout the PGA, but also popularity with his trademark attire. Payne was known for wearing those classic knickers and flat caps, reminiscent of the early 20th century golf attire. In an age where polo shirts and khakis ruled the scene, photographers loved Payne's colorful and flamboyant style.
In addition to the throwback clothes, Payne was equally known for the pure smoothness and sweetness of his swing. It was hard to find a better one out there. However, early on, Payne was known to have an attitude problem and had some personality conflicts. It wasn't until the mid-90s that he underwent a self-awakening and came out of it a gentler, kinder person. And it made him much more likable, really likable. And that, combined with his successes in the PGA, earned him, fanfare status.
In fact, Payne became so popular, he was even featured on an episode of Tim Allen's hit TV show Home Improvement. With all of his success came the never-ending tours and celebrity appearances. So Payne found it necessary to travel extensively, and it made sense that he charter a small business jet for just those occasions. He found exactly what he needed in the Lear 35, a popular business jet chartered by Sunjet Aviation out of Florida. The Learjet Model 35, or simply the Lear 35, was manufactured between 1973 and 1993. It was quick and agile, but could also fly over 2,000 miles nonstop. It became a favorite among pilots and their passengers. The Lear 35 could carry up to 8 passengers, so it was the ideal choice for Payne Stewart and his team.
And Christina, have you flown the Lear?
Not the Lear 35. I flew a Lear 45.
Okay,
different airplane.
All right, but close, right?
Not exactly. Made by the same
It was only
company.
10 off. All right. Well, the charter company Sunjet Aviation was relatively new to the industry, and they just started in 1993. The chief pilot was James Watkins Sr. The company never recovered from the highly publicized 1999 crash, and they ceased operations in 2006. More on the aftermath shortly. The morning of October 25th, 1999 was a busy one for Payne. He, along with agent Robert Fraley and his boss, Van Arden, the agent's boss, and golf architect Bruce Borland, were headed from Orlando, Florida to Dallas Love Field, where they were going to be designing a new golf course. And from there, they would head down to Houston, where Payne was to play in the year-end tournament. At the time, Payne was third on the money list.
The two pilots who would get them there were the 42-year-old captain, Michael Kling, and the first officer, Stephanie Belagarigu.
I'm glad you had to say that, not me.
Please tell me if I pronounced that incorrectly. I do not want to disrespect her. She was just 27 years old. This really resonates with me because she was an up-and-coming commercial pilot who was eager to gain flight hours and experience, not unlike myself. The captain and first officer arrived to the Lear 35, November 4-7 Bravo Alpha, about an hour and a half before their scheduled departure time of 8 a.m. Eastern Time. They were beginning their day at Orlando Sanford International Airport and would make the quick 15-minute flight over to Orlando International Airport to pick up their passengers. From there, they would then fly over to Dallas Love Field and then down to Houston Hobby Airport. The following day, they would fly back to Orlando International and then reposition the airplane back to Orlando Sanford.
Well, both pilots were in good health and eager to get their two-day trip started. They departed Orlando Sanford at 7:54 a.m. Eastern Time and arrived without incident at Orlando International at 8:10 a.m. Payne and his crew showed up about 30 minutes later, and they were ready for their 9 a.m. departure. According to reports, Lear 7 Bravo Alpha departed Orlando International at 9:19 a.m. They were handed off to Jacksonville Center at 9:21 a.m. and reported climbing through 9,500 feet for 14,000 feet. The Jack Center controller instructed 7 Bravo Alpha to continue their climb to flight level 260 or 26,000 feet. And at 9:23 a.m., the Jack Center controller cleared 7 Bravo Alpha direct to the fix, Cross City, then direct to Dallas Love Field. And then at 9:26 a.m., the crew was given a frequency change to another Jack Center controller, and up to this point, everything about the flight was normal and all transmissions had been acknowledged.
At 9:27 a.m., 7 Bravo Alpha contacted the new Jack Center controller and reported climbing through flight level 230. The controller instructed 7 Bravo Alpha to continue their climb up to their filed altitude of flight level 390, which the first officer acknowledged. But this would be the last time anyone would hear from 7 Bravo Alpha. The first signs of trouble occurred at 9:33 a.m. when the Jack Center controller gave the crew another frequency change. But this time, there was no response. The controller called 5 times over the next 4.5 minutes. It wasn't initially alarming. I mean, we sometimes miss frequency change calls for various reasons. We get busy up there, but controllers have a whole procedure they go through when communications with an aircraft fail. And they continued those attempts to contact 7 Bravo Alpha, including through other aircraft in the area. The aircraft continued to climb up to flight level 390, then higher. And when 7 Bravo Alpha missed their turn at Cross City, the controllers knew something was very wrong.
The controllers scrambled their resources to determine where the wayward Learjet might be going, or what could be wrong. They contacted an F-16 that was operating in the area from the nearby Eglin Air Force Base, and they asked him to intercept 7 Bravo Alpha and attempt to make contact. This was the first interception. And by the time the pilot was able to see the Learjet, it had climbed to 46,400 feet. And at this point, 7 Bravo Alpha had been unresponsive for over an hour and was making its way over Memphis, Tennessee. And the F-16 came about 2,000 feet from 7 Bravo Alpha, where he reported being unable to see the pilots due to ice or condensation covering the cockpit windscreen. He couldn't see inside the cabin of the plane either, and when he failed to contact the pilots, he broke off and headed down.
It was very clear that something was tragically wrong. 7 Bravo Alpha was essentially a ghost plane flying along, but with pilots and passengers likely dead. And now the plane was heading over some major metropolitan areas. The next challenge was determining how long it would continue to fly and where it would eventually come down. About 3 hours into 7 Bravo Alpha's flight, 2 F-16s from the Oklahoma Air National Guard intercepted the Learjet. The F-16 pilots reported no visible movement from inside the aircraft, and they also reported that the windscreen was iced over. At this point, 7 Bravo Alpha had reached an altitude of 48,900 feet. 2 more F-16s from the North Dakota Air National Guard then intercepted.
You know, I remember during this time listening to the radio station. It was now, by this point, reporting the story about this ghost plane with Payne Stewart. It was horrible. Controllers on the ground had calculated a likely area that the Learjet would run out of fuel based on the amount of fuel filed on the original flight plan. And although Pentagon officials strongly deny they ever intended to shoot down the plane, all 4 F-16s continued to follow closely until the engines finally ran out of fuel.
At 12:10 p.m. Central Time, it happened. The right engine flamed out and the Learjet started to turn, then spiral down. The F-16 pilots could do nothing but watch helplessly as 7 Bravo Alpha fell out of the sky. The concern now was that it would fall into a populated area. Just 3 minutes later, after flying for 3 hours and 54 minutes, November 4-7 Bravo Alpha crashed into a hayfield in Edmonds County, South Dakota. All 6 occupants on board were confirmed dead at the scene.
The Learjet had a cockpit voice recorder, but it was only in a last 30 minutes loop, and so it revealed very little. The NTSB concluded the probable cause was incapacitation of the flight crew members as a result of their failure to receive supplemental oxygen following the loss of cabin pressurization for undetermined reasons. Now, the report was unsure if it was a rapid or a gradual loss of pressurization.
The last communication was when they were at 23,000 feet. A loss of pressurization at that altitude would result in useful consciousness of maybe 5 minutes, but they were still climbing, meaning their useful consciousness was declining rapidly. And at the plane's highest altitude, it's only 9 to 15 seconds in the event of a rapid decompressurization.
Hypoxia, which is what was attributed here, is the medical term for when there is an oxygen deficiency in the body's tissue. Symptoms can vary in each individual, but often include confusion, headache, shortness of breath, changes in the color of the skin, increasing tunnel vision until you pass out. For me, I get a headache and tunnel vision.
I actually haven't done the oxygen chamber yet. I need to so that I know what my symptoms are.
And the FAA has an oxygen chamber in Oklahoma City, free of charge for pilots so they can figure out their own symptoms. Now, if you receive oxygen when you're hypoxic, recovery is almost instantaneous.
A question that is often asked about this scenario is why the crew didn't don their oxygen masks as soon as they determined that there was a problem with the pressurization system. Studies have shown that even with a relatively gradual rate of depressurization, pilots have rapidly lost cognitive abilities to effectively troubleshoot the problem. So they don't comprehend that there's a problem and therefore they don't don their masks. That's likely what happened in this case, a slow but gradual depressurization that caused the crew to lose their mental faculties and decline before they even knew what was going on.
Brian Turner went to the FAA thing in Oklahoma City. They had them do math, and during the exercise, they think they're doing it perfectly, and at the end, it's gibberish.
Oh my.
So they don't even know that they're stupid.
Right.
So at the end of the investigation, the NTSB could not determine exactly why they had a depressurization situation. One interesting note, the Lear had its windows iced over from the inside due to this decompression. The recent Citation 5 crash that went over Washington, D.C., the fighter pilots were able to see clearly into the flight deck. There was no icing on the windscreen.
The airplane in Payne Stewart's crash did have a maintenance history of work done related to cabin pressure in the preceding months before the crash, but all they had were the maintenance work records. There were no records of what the pilots had reported as to what the problem was. Sunjet was criticized by the NTSB for this.
In addition, here's where it gets a bit conspiratorial. The FBI got involved and started their own investigation, accusing Sunjet's chief pilot, James Watkins Sr., of falsifying the pilot's records, alleging that the pilots didn't have the amount of time in the Learjet that was in the records. And also 6 other pilots at the company were investigated for the same reason. The FBI waged a legal battle against Sunjet for 8 years. In 2008, the FBI stopped the investigation after the FAA dropped its attempt to revoke the pilot certificates of Watkins and the 6 other pilots due to the lack of causal factors.
At the end of the day, nothing could save Sunjet Aviation. After starting and stopping operations over the years, the charter company closed up shop for good in 2006. The Hoffman family, who owned the land where the crash happened, created a lovely memorial to honor the crash victims.
As for Payne Stewart's legacy, he was posthumously inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. Neither Payne nor the crash victims of 47 Bravo Alpha will be forgotten.
That's it today for the examination into the crash of Payne Stewart Learjet. We hope you enjoyed it. It's not always easy discussing incidents and accidents like this, which is why we are so grateful for our sponsors like Flying Eyes Optics. Use our discount code TAKINGOFF, all caps, one word, to get 10% off. I personally was a customer before they sponsored our channel.
I remember that, and I got mine too as well before they were sponsored. These are so great. All right, and also sponsors like ColtonTakingOff.com, Colton Mortgage for your residential mortgage needs. And during this tough time in the financial markets, Pilot Brant and his team will help you navigate the mortgage process. Also, Marshall Protective Services, MPSProtects.com, personal security elevated.
Z-Vision, the brightest taxi and landing lights in the market, zvision.com, and clemensinsurance.net.
Jerry knows insurance and he knows pilots. He knocked off 4 figures on my insurance with Lolo when I made the switch. Call Jerry, he'll take care of you. All of our sponsors are pilots, and we can keep it in the aviation family. Well, that's it. And you might want to check out Christy's analysis of the John Denver crash by clicking the box. And remember, superior judgment trumps superior skills.
Take care, everybody, and fly safe. We'll see you next time on Taking Off.